Hi folks, welcome to the third Right Videocast from Right Radio. I think today we'll be talking mostly about Alex Salmond's trial and coronavirus, and there'll no doubt be bits and bobs that we throw in during our discussion. Jimmy, Alex Salmond trial. Result you wanted?
Well, yeah. To be honest, I thought they might have had a couple of more not provens in there just to try and muddy the waters. But yeah, the result that I wanted, the result I kind of expected, having followed it, and given how very little evidence there was of any crimes, I'm not surprised he was convicted of no crimes. And it's exactly what he said at the start of all this, that he might have been a bit of a donut, a bit of an arse, an Egypt, whatever we want to put it. But he's no criminal, and he doesn't sexually harass women.
Stewart?
So, proven.
Well, the Salmond trial, he's a tactile man. He's not as old as me, but he is of a generation long before Me Too was thought up. Young people today have no idea what the world was like 50 years ago. Not a clue. Or 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago. And it doesn't make all men predators or sexual perverts. It was a different world. And I'm not going to illustrate it, otherwise I might be putting myself in it and giving myself a problem. The Salmond trial and the people that were talking about it, that I respect. I think we need to move away from the sexual charges, because it's quite clearly it was a political trial. What we have got here, let me just give you 3 quotes from Craig Murray. Evidence was heard of some of the accusers conspiring together with others. I'm naming no others yet, but at the very top of the SNP party. What we learned is a trial about careerism and self-promotion among those earning a very fat living out of the party's current domination of Scottish politics was really very unedifying indeed. In 1983, I wrote a dissertation about careerism in politics. So let me say I've been following it for a very long time, and I see it in the SNP. I warned about it as soon as the SNP came into power in 2007. One more piece. The SNP is host to a parasitic and highly paid professional elite with no discernible interest in independence, which it was set up for. It's a truly remarkable phenomenon. What we saw, revealed in court, was a procession of members of the political class who would just have happily have made their careers in the old, corrupt Scottish Labour Party if it was still in charge.
Well, you're not the only one that was warning about it. We could see it starting to happen, especially, I would say, post-2007. It started to rear its ugly head. But on the trial itself and the things he was accused of, when you think about it, there's not going to be too many kids in a playground haven't pulled somebody's hair. And if that's now to be seen as some sort of sexual attack, what are we coming to? I mean, you couldn't really at the time talk about how ridiculous some of the accusations sound.
You can now, and you can point out that some of them and some of the cabal that put this together, because, again, not naming any names, but it will all come out in the very near future. Some of the people that have put this together are actually doing a disservice to women by the way that they promoted this entire thing. I wouldn't use the term feminazi, but I've heard it bandied about. But the reality was that a group of women got together and decided to besmirch the character of Alex Salmond for whatever reason. We all know pretty much one of them in particular, it was because her political ambitions had been thwarted. I think what will come out of it, if we have a full and open inquiry, is that there has to be a far far better way of dealing with these kind of allegations than tittle-tattle, than phoning newspapers to give them a wee heads up because you worry that, you're not getting enough publicity for your plot. And I'll wait to see what Alex has got to say about it, because I hear that he's going into isolation for a couple of months because he's worried about his health. So he'll be the one that names names, and he'll be the one that decides when the shit really hits the fan.
I agree with you about the effect this is going to have on other women. Now, I'm going to say women with genuine cases to bring to court, because I did feel, I mean, the Hertogen one in particular, I felt was really trivial. And I mean, if you're going to do something like that, and you believe the perpetrator, for want of a better word, believes that it's got sexual connotations, you're not doing it in a lift in front of somebody else. I find it amazing that these were even brought into the court.
Well,
unless of course,
the only reason that one came to court is it's the only allegation where they had an eyewitness. It is ridiculous. He flicked a lassie's hair in a lift, but it's the only allegation where they had an eyewitness. So that's the only reason that was brought to court. Frankly, half of these allegations, I've read a couple of women online who have said they're disgusted that as victims of sexual violence themselves, they never had the level of support or the level of police pushing or the level of procurator fiscal backing that these women in the Salmond case got.
I mean, that's got to devalue the position of women with genuine assaults to bring to court.
That's kind of where I am. I'm sort of wary here. I'm still wary about making accusations because we haven't heard all the evidence. We weren't in court. So, I mean, maybe things sounded worse if you were there. Maybe things sounded even more ridiculous, but we weren't there.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see when someone publishes the WhatsApp messages that were read out in court.
Aye.
They're now in the public. They're now in the public record. I can't see there being any problem with somebody doing so. But it'll be interesting to see just what were in these messages and the kind of level of planning that went into the whole operation. Because we don't know that. We've only just heard people alluding to it so far.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to what it means for the SNP. Let's have a think about what the ramifications for
we giggle at, sorry, Norrie, can we giggle at how it was it's being portrayed in the media as the SNP civil war? Because I'm not sure about you, Norrie, I ken how good you are with numbers, pal, but this must be about SNP civil war number 7 or 8 that we've had in the last year and a half or so, isn't it?
Aye, but I noticed that the reporting moved very quickly from Salmond, and that being a disaster for Scotland, well, the independence movement in Scotland, onto Nicola Sturgeon and how the fact that he's been found not guilty, not proven. Actually, I do want to mention something here about the not proven verdict. In Scots law, for hundreds of years, there were 2 verdicts, proven and not proven. That was it. There was no not guilty verdict. This is a relatively new thing. I mean, Scots being Scots, I think the way they thought about it was, look, pal, just because so-and-so didn't see you. So it was always proven or not proven. You weren't found not guilty. So it's a not guilty verdict.
Yes.
And people should remember that. As far as the SNP are concerned, there was never going to be a win situation for the SNP here.
Yeah.
The accusations will now move on to Nicola's lack of control. What did she know? What didn't she know?
When she knew it.
Well, apparently one of the accusers was in a meeting when this was discussed, and Nicola was not told she was one of the accusers. Who knows?
Yeah,
we don't know.
which is scandalous. I think she might very well have been hung out to dry by the people who dreamt this thing up. Because, I mean, it's to some of our listeners and viewers that might sound a bit harsh, but you can call it that now. These are accusations that have not been proven. They've been found to be lies. The court and the jury have effectively said that these women made this up, that these things didn't happen. So
I'm not.
if some folk aren't happy around, well, if some folk aren't happy around the language that I use, then be unhappy around the language that I use.
I'm not sure I would.
Is,
I'm not sure I would frame it quite like that. I mean, I think some of the accusations were pushed into the sexual arena that shouldn't have been there.
Norrie, even yesterday, the British media were going on about how Salmond had admitted that he'd acted inappropriately. He never used that wording. To act in an inappropriate sexual manner is a crime. He never used that word. He said he'd been an ass, an idiot. In fact, I think he said, "I'm no angel." Very different from saying he'd admitted inappropriately sexual behaviour, because that in itself is a crime. So
Stuart,
them using that language is dodgy.
Stuart, you're kind of out of this.
Well, I would bring in the word compromat. If our listeners understand what compromat means, and why is it a Russian word? It's because it was frequently used by the KGB to trap people that they didn't like or they wanted to bring down. Any accusation of sexual misconduct, and this has been going on for 30, 40 years. This is not even new. It's a way to defeat your enemy. Don't forget what happened to what is still happening to Julian Assange. He was accused in Sweden which turned out to be by corrupt prosecutors, of not using a condom the second time he had a shag with a woman, a consensual shag. So it clearly was political. The big issue that really needs to be faced by the SNP is I've been banging on about it forever. I know it sounds like a stupid old drum. It's appalling SNP management. How on earth did they get into the mess of starting this stupid campaign?
It's come from the SNP management. It's come from the senior levels of the party. These are people that are behind it.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm not sure I can agree with that, but I will say that obviously their stance has been a zero tolerance stance. Anybody accused of anything gets thrown out the party while there's an investigation. And it looks like a good policy. It looks like it should save you getting all those terrible headlines from a political point of view. I'm talking here. It looks like a way to cut the press out of it. We've done it. We've thrown him out of the party, and we're having an investigation, or her. Although I don't think they've thrown any women out yet. But
no, Norrie. I mean,
what then ensues does not satisfy the people that are accused. They don't feel like they're getting a fair hearing. So that needs to be looked at. Sure.
Yeah, but look at the SNP membership. It's the largest political party Scotland's ever seen. But there are more members in the SNP than all other political parties put together in Scotland. And in the end, you've got a large part of that are there. They're there to achieve independence. They're not there to have a trans issue brought up, to have sexual perverts attacked. That's not why these people join the SNP. Yes, they want good government, but they don't want the aim of independence for Scotland compromised by stupid, very bad management decisions at the top of the SNP. And don't forget, the SNP is almost certainly smaller than the Yes movement.
Yeah, why I'm leery about accusing the management of the SNP of anything is start with the civil service inquiry. Nicola Sturgeon's couldn't be hands-on. She couldn't yay or nay that. She had to stand back and let that take its course.
Oh, no, Norrie, I'm not convinced that's the case. I think you're...
Well, I'm sorry. What would you be sitting there saying had she knocked it on the head? Had she said, no, we're not having an inquiry? What kind of message does that send? As for the police inquiry, wait a minute, Stuart. As for the
very first time it went public, it fell over.
Right, but she wasn't involved in the inquiry. That's what I'm saying. It was a civil service inquiry. The Scottish government had to support the civil service, and they lost in court. This second tranche was the police. It wasn't even the Scottish government. It was the police and the Procurator Fiscal that chose to take it to court.
I still
had
think
she
you're
interfered? Wrong. Well, had she interfered in any of that, what would the accusations what accusations would have been thrown at her then?
Complete
It's really not the point, Norrie. It's not the point. The point is, right from the start, at the very top, the wrong decision was made.
What was the decision that was made that was wrong?
Well, to allow the top of the SNP to be taken over by careerists, to have people who don't have the benefit of the country or the independence project as their first priority. They're just after their careers.
Right. Okay.
Sure.
What's that got to do with the Salmond inquiry and the court case?
It wouldn't have. If with decent management at the top, we would never got here.
But every political party has political operatives running it. That's just how it goes. You can't have a party of 100,000 people and not have a machine to run it. You can't have a party of government and not have a machine to run it.
You're agreeing with Jimmy, you're agreeing with me. That's my point. There is a machine that runs it. It's the machine that's faulty.
Aye, but if that's the case, you change it. And surely that's going to happen because these people, a lot of them have been involved in bringing this case against Salmond. And a lot of them that sat up there, mind, we're still not saying their names because some of them are actually accusers. Some of them have lifelong anonymity, which wouldn't last when Alex Salmond prints their names or mentions it on Russia Today. Once it's in the public domain, their anonymity is gone. And from all that I'm led to understand, that was one of the hugely important things to 5 of these 9 women, that they remained anonymous, that nobody knew who they were or what they were doing. And
that is still the case.
Mm-hmm.
That's been underlined by the judge. They remain anonymous. I mean, it seems to be common knowledge amongst the journalists in Scotland who they are. So it'll come out. It will come out.
It's bound to come out, mate. But I think a lot of the journalists are going to let Mr. Salmond do the outing himself because he'll probably do it on RT. He'll certainly do it in a way that is legal, and it's his revenge to have, shall we say.
Right, guys, I'm going to let Alex Salmond have the last word on this. I've got a wee clip of his statement after the court case. Bear with me.
In judicial review, I said I had great faith in the court system of Scotland. That faith has been much reinforced today. So I'd like to start by explaining that faith and thanking the jury for their decision. I'd also like to thank the court service who've been courteous beyond limit over the last 2 weeks, and to the police officers who've manned this trial under these extraordinary circumstances. Obviously, above all, I'd like to thank my friends and family for standing by me over the last 2 years. I'd like to thank my brilliant legal team, who are absolutely exceptional. And I'd like to thank all of the people who've sent so many messages over the last 18 months or so, but particularly in recent days. As many of you know, there are certain evidence that I would have liked to have seen led in this trial, but for a variety of reasons we were not able to do so. At some point, that information, that facts and that evidence will see the light of day, but it won't be this day, and it won't be this day for a very good reason. That is, whatever nightmare I've been in over these last 2 years, it is as of nothing compared to the nightmare that every single one of us is currently living through. People are dying. Many more are going to die. What we are doing this now, and I know you've got a job to do, it is not safe. I know it's your job, but it ain't safe. And my strong advice to you is to go home, those who can and are able to, take care of your families, and God help us all. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Well, lads, very statesmanlike, I thought.
Yeah.
I suppose we need to move on to the final step, the shutdown of the country from Boris Johnson. I don't know if any of you caught his speech on the telly.
Sick of seeing it already.
Well,
I can't watch it. I'm sorry, it makes my blood boil. I've got to keep soft things beside me on the sofa, otherwise I'll smash my screen. He makes my blood boil. He is an inveterate liar, and yet he's supposed to be telling us what to do to save our lives. No. If he says jump in the lifeboat, I'll stay on the ship.
Well, I thought he was very Churchillian. I thought he did quite well last night, actually.
What, Churchill the Doug at the advert? Closer to that than anything else.
Well, I thought I did.
Yeah,
I
Norrie,
have to say.
again, it was
There's something wrong with you, Norrie, if you think he was Churchillian.
I'm talking about in
don't know.
comparison to what he'd been delivering before.
I don't know. Churchill was a ring piece, I know. Churchill wasn't exactly the greatest prime minister that the English all going about. You know what I mean? He sent the tanks into Glasgow after all.
Oh no, but at least Churchill could deliver a serious speech to the people. I don't believe. I mean, what you're talking about is a columnist from a right-wing newspaper running the country, who is not believed by half the country. Half the people that voted to stay in the EU don't believe a word he says.
Well, there's a choice for you. Would you rather have him as PM, or who is it that's going to be deputy? Is it Hancock or?
If it wasn't Bob, it would probably be Michael Gove. Eh?
No, it isn't he? It's another one.
Dominic Raab.
It's Dominic Raab. That's who it is.
Aye, well, Raab's only getting that job because he's thick as mince and he's far easier to wrap around Dominic Cummings' finger.
Well,
If
I
Boris
couldn't
hadn't
believe it.
Hmm.
Don't worry, folks. If Boris goes down, we've got another idiot in the cupboard.
I just thought it was typical, Norrie. It was 8:30 he started making his speech, and by the back of 10, they were rowing back on it as per. They were. It wasn't a complete lockdown; it was a partial lockdown. Building sites could stay open, then they couldn't, then they could again. And as for only go out your house once, aye, that really works because the tubes were rammed this morning. The rush hour traffic was horrific in London. And the Chancellor has spent today wriggling about like a fish on a hook, still desperately trying not to do anything for the self-employed or those who work in the gig economy, who make up 15% of our entire workforce.
Well, he made some comment about it taking time. What they're desperately trying to do is come up with a system that does not look like universal basic income.
Aye, I think there might be remember last week, we laughed at the idea of a Tory Chancellor actually using helicopter money, just giving people money. That thing is no longer laughable because events have overtaken them to the extent where they might actually have to say to a lot of these boys on the building sites, a lot of these Deliveroo drivers and all that, Ken what? There's £1,500. Stay in your house for 2 months.
Well, Stewart?
No, I find it frustrating. They couldn't, as Jimmy said, they can't even get it right with a simple announcement about another partial lockdown. I mean, that's what's disgusting. They're carrying on with the Dominic Cummings plan. They're quite happy to let lots of old, fat and ugly people die. And yet, there it is in Italy. What have they got? 6,500 dead. They've got more dead in Italy than they had in China, and China's about 10 times the size of Italy. Also, they can't make things clear. You've got Sports Direct. It's like Tim Martin and Weatherspoons. You go, I don't want to shut my pubs, and I give you a lot of money. You've got Sports Direct, Mike Ashley. oh, I don't want to shut Sports Direct. There's all the detail. The devil's in the detail, as they say.
And Boris is famously not a details man, but it was interesting to read that when he came in as Prime Minister, it must have crossed his desk, the preparation report that they'd done late 2016. And he must have went, not interested, didn't care. I bet you wish he cared now, because that was all about an influenza-type outbreak, pandemic in the United Kingdom. Norrie, you discussed it yesterday.
Aye,
And
Sports Direct shutting.
Aye, Sports Director shutting me, but what's Mike Ashley go out at? He's got a bung of some sort.
Have
His tax will be deferred for a year or so.
Have any of you seen the letter that Witherspoon sent to their employees?
Aye, joke.
Go and get a job with Asda.
Go and get a job at Tesco, aye. But as I was saying, that report, Norrie, that said, we won't be able to count the bodies.
Yep.
We won't be able to deal with the bodies. And that is how we've ended up in this situation. Because Boris was only interested in Brexit, getting Brexit done.
Oh, is that still happening?
Nonsense. Apparently, but we've all forgot about it because we've all been instructed not to think about it or mention it anymore.
Stuart, this is a godsend to the Brexiteers, because they won't be able to differentiate between what would have happened with Brexit and what is going to happen with the coronavirus. They won't be able to untangle that. So they're going to get away scot-free.
Okay, well, look, I've not been in France for a while. But by all accounts, France, which is not as bad as Italy, not as bad as Spain, but they have brought in a decent lockdown. And if you want to leave your house, you have to print off a form and state where you're going, why you're going, and why you're entitled to go there. And if you've got to carry that with you. And if you get stopped by a policeman, then it makes a lot of sense. And it's so far away from this rubbish waffle.
But Stuart, we don't have the level of powers in the hands of the police that France have. The French police can stop you and ask you for your documents. European police have always been able to do that. In this country, they've never been able to do that. And we are handing that to them in the next couple of days.
And we don't carry ID like most European countries.
Right, you're bringing up the emergency legislation that's coming in. Why do we need a document the thickness of a telephone directory to bring in emergency legislation when other countries can do it overnight?
Because they've already got most of it.
Aye, the other countries already have it in place. The police have powers that our police don't.
I think it's a real worry for me, but I'm not that bothered about it in terms of their powers, because the Sunset Clause will, in all likelihood, mean that the worst of any excesses that come about will be taken back. They'll just be handed back to the people.
They agreed to 6 months, didn't they?
Yeah. I'm more concerned about the fact that as this thing's going on, more and more we are talking about, we're all talking as if we're living in London. 22 people are dying in England for every one that dies in Scotland. That's not been mentioned by any of the Scottish media at all. And we have a far stronger, we've all known we've got a far more prepared and stronger healthcare system up here than they have down there. And I'm sick and tired of seeing Tory politicians and representatives of the Police Federation over the last 24 hours sitting on TV saying we are taking these powers to protect the NHS so that the NHS will be able to cope so that there's no a surge. How can any Tory politician sit and say they're doing anything to protect the NHS?
Well, I was going to say,
for the last decade.
If they're doing it to protect the NHS, are they allowed to arrest Tory MPs?
Aye, one would hope so, because they've been dismantling and selling off the NHS for a decade. And now they are wrapping themselves, every single one of them is wearing an NHS badge every time they're on the telly. They're wrapping themselves in this blanket of, it's all for the NHS, it's all for your good. I don't think it's for our good. And I think these people have, if not causing a lot of the problems that we're about to endure, they certainly exacerbated them and have made them a hell of a lot worse.
I think that'll be true. I think we're coming near the end. Stuart, have you got anything to
Well,
add?
in the detail, there's a few bits in the detail of this, not a lockdown. There's another expression. Hotel are also supposed to close. Hotels, hostels, bed and breakfast, campsites, caravan parks, and boarding houses. So what about all the homeless people that are put up in boarding houses?
Yeah. I believe that there are schemes out there for taking the homeless off the streets and putting them in the empty hotel rooms. I mean, let's be honest, guys. Edinburgh could take every homeless person in Scotland, feed them, keep them warm, and there would not be an issue with all these empty hotel rooms we've got.
But Ian Murray, wouldn't he be able to keep the Labour seat in Morningside if that happened?
I didn't give them a vote, mate. Put them in a travel lodge or whatever for a few weeks so that they're not in the streets. That's what I'm saying.
Not quality accommodation then.
Aye. But there was something that bugged me last night about Nicola Sturgeon, Norrie, I wanted to bring up. She completely avoided a question. And it's most unlike her. Normally, she's pretty straight. But somebody at her press conference last night asked her, what happens when this lockdown becomes socially or economically unviable, unsustainable? And she absolutely blanked the question and went off into waffle mode. It's the first time I've seen her do it. But I do wonder if they've thought, what happens if this lockdown does become economically unsustainable? What happens if people are starving in their homes because they've got no money to go to the shops that are still open and buy messages?
Rich people survive. That's what happens.
Aye, and the poor lose weight because you're still allowed to go and exercise, which is Barry. I can still go out and jog. At some point, I might get back down to having a 34-inch waist, but I very much doubt it.
Right, guys, we're going to call it a day at that, or we're going to call it a day shortly. I want to show you a clip of a Fox News clip of an American who I think is claiming he's over 70. I think he's had a bit of facial surgery done if he is over 70, claiming that he would rather die than see the economy go to the dogs. So if you just bear with me a moment. You've got to listen to the end when the interview...
Living in fear of is what's happening to this country. And you know, Tucker, no one reached out to me and said, as a senior citizen, are you for keeping the America that all America loves for your children and grandchildren? And if that's the exchange, I'm all in. And that doesn't make me noble or brave or anything like that. I just think there are lots of grandparents out there in this country, like me, I have 6 grandchildren, that what we all care about and what we love more than anything are those children. And I want to, you know, live smart and see through this, but I don't want the whole country to be sacrificed. And that's what I see. I've talked to hundreds of people, Tucker, and just in the last week, and making calls all the time, and everyone says pretty much the same thing, that we can't lose our whole country. We're having an economic collapse. I'm also a small businessman. I understand it, and I talk with business people all the time, Tucker, and my heart is lifted tonight by what I heard the president say, because we can do more than, you know, one thing at a time. We can do 2 things. So, you know, my message is that let's get back to work. Let's get back to living. Let's be smart about it. And those of us who are 70 plus, we'll take care of ourselves, but don't sacrifice the country. Don't do that. Don't ruin this great American dream.
So you're basically saying that this disease could take your life, but that's not the scariest thing to you. There's something that would be worse than dying.
Yeah. And look, I'm going to.
So what do you think of that, lads?
Well, I don't know about you, Stuart. I reckon that face should have a tail coming out because he's a horse's ass. And as for stuff about family and grandkids and stuff like that, I'm not a breeder. I think politicians should speak to people that didn't have kids sometimes before they make nonsense statements like that. Speak to folk that didn't have kids for whatever reason.
Well, I've got to ask Stuart the question. Stuart, are you prepared to to give of the ultimate sacrifice for the good of my grandkids.
No. Wait a minute. That is not the question. That wasn't the question that was challenged in that clip. Am I prepared to give up my life so that we can go back to the capitalist country of 1% owning everything and the bottom 10% poor? No.
Okay. So you're just going to stubbornly stay alive until we get a socialist utopia.
Marxist, please.
Oh, sorry, Marxist utopia.
And we're starting small. The Marxist Republic in North 4th Street, and then me and Stewart will roll it out for there.
Right. So for all you Tories, avoid North 4th Street in Edinburgh.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys. Thank you for that. I'm glad we managed to get a wee smile at the end there. Cheers, folks. Thanks for listening. This has been the Right Radio Videocast. Tell all your friends. Thanks, Stuart Lockhead and Jimmy Hutton. I'm Norrie Stewart, and we'll catch you again tomorrow, hopefully. Cheers for now, folks.